very much. It's a little, I feel a little inept, and I'm not such a great speaker as our previous speaker, so I'll just, again, I'm from Dorcas International Institute. We're the largest resettlement agency in Rhode Island. We share the honor with the Catholic Diocese. We last year resettled just about 270, just under 270 refugees. The diocese we settle about 85, so a couple hundred refugees come into the state each year. More and more are coming in with U.S. ties, meaning they have family and relatives already living here in Rhode Island, and so they've got someone here that's willing to support them and sponsor them when they're here. So about, I'd say 40 to 50% of our refugees recently have been connected in some way to someone already here. And so that's been very exciting to see. It's actually very exciting to see all of the support that we've gotten in the last year. We are resettling a larger percentage of Syrian refugees. And the reason primarily is because we already had a large Syrian American population. They say largest per capita, whatever that means in Rhode Island, we all know, right? It's not that many, but it was largest per capita. And these were Syrians who came over as immigrants through the normal channels before things broke up. And they weren't necessarily a community in and among themselves. They were individuals and families that were living and working in Rhode Island. And the amazing thing that happened, as often happens I see in Rhode Island, I'm relatively new here, but they came together in support of their Syrian brothers and sisters to really create a whole network of support, which has been very heartwarming to see. And as Reverend Anderson said, many of our newly arrived refugees really are so overwhelmed by just coming here that they're not necessarily aware of some of the danger that's out there through executive orders and that kind of thing. Unlike some immigrants who have been here for a long time and watch the news, but newly arrived refugees have so much to deal with that they really aren't even necessarily aware of anything other than trying to get through day-to-day, acclimating themselves. We probably this past year we settled about 135 Syrians, and in addition, out of those several hundred. When the executive order came out, basically President Obama had originally expected to resettle 110 refugees this year, so we and other organizations ramped up to manage that. As of beginning October through when the executive order was signed, we had resettled over 30,000 of those 110,000. And now, whether the executive order, whether the temporary restraining order is upheld or not, it's our expectation that the number of refugees we've resettled this year is going to go down to 50,000 from that 110,000. If you think about it, of the 65 million displaced people across the world, we were going to resettle about 80,000 more. Now we can expect to resettle just under 20,000. So there are 60,000 folks that were in the pipeline, assured, had gone through the vetting process, were expected to come sometime during the course of the year. And whether the ban is approved or not, likely the president will reduce the numbers to be settled down to 50. 50 was mentioned in the executive order, and we have no reason to think that that wouldn't change, because that's one of the powers that the president does have, is to identify how many refugees, not necessarily where they come from, but how many to resettle. So we can expect lower numbers, and so as a result, again, even if this ban goes away, there will still be people kind of caught in the pipeline, if you will. When the temporary ban came, or the temporary restraining order was invoked the other day, the State Department immediately reached out to the folks who had been turned back and started to book them back on flights. They're trying to move as many people as they can in the next, it was 2 weeks from the date of the temporary order, so there's about 15 days. So we're looking to resettle additional refugees between today and the 17th of February. Currently, we're expecting 13 people, and they're all from one of the 7 countries, some of them, one of them. They're not from each of the 7 countries, but from Syria, Somalia, Iraq, and I think that's it, actually. So that's the good news. After the 17th, we're not sure what's going to happen at all. Again, just sharing information that I've received. One of the good things that has happened, and I think you've heard on the news how these Iraqi translators are being turned back because they're coming from Iraq. However, folks from Afghanistan who had been doing translation while we were there, were still allowed to come in under this ban. The good news is that the Iraqis who are seeking asylum, we call it a special immigrant visa, sometimes you hear SIV, the Iraqis along with the Afghanis will be allowed even if the ban stands. So that's good news from that perspective. I think there's a little bit of pressure in terms of these folks who are helping with the industries. So that's kind of the refugee status within Rhode Island right now. With regard to immigrants, there's just under 150,000 immigrants in Rhode Island. Anywhere from 10 to 20%, we really have no idea, but we guess between 20 and 30,000 are here without legal status, without documentation or legal status. Many of them came into the country legally, allowed their visas to expire, and that's why they become illegal. It's not that they've committed a crime. Generally, most of them have not committed fraud coming into the country, which would be criminal, but rather it's a civil infraction. So the word illegal kind of pushes everybody's buttons to think that they're criminals, and in many cases they're not. So that's the number, that's the general number. If you think about if there's a heavy deportation, those, when we talk sanctuary, that's the number that may need sanctuary. We don't also know how many of the young people who receive their DACA status, how many there are in Rhode Island. We know as an organization we provide immigration legal services, and we're one of the largest nonprofit Department of Justice accredited providers of legal services in the state. And we processed between just about 350 DACA applications ourselves, but many of the young folks are very talented and can complete the application on their own. It was an application process that didn't need a lot of legal advice other than to determine whether they were eligible and really understand the ramifications. So here we are quite a few years later, and there are ramifications because these young people, when they applied for their status, shared information about their parents and their family members. And so my understanding, without any proof of this, is that an executive order around DACA will allow these young people to remain under DACA until the expiration date. DACA status is given for 2 years, and Roberto Gonzalez, I'm sure knows a lot more than I do, but and so over the course of the next 2 years, there will be folks coming off. And then what happens when the government has their information and that of their families is a big concern there in terms of sanctuary. Well, I'll stop for a minute because I've given a whole lot of numbers and information, and so I'll allow, if you have questions or if there's certain things you'd like to know more about, I'd be very happy to share that with you. Any questions? Well, then I guess I'm finished. Thank you very much.
Over here.
Oh, sorry.
Hi. I'm ashamed to admit how little I know about the details of this circumstance. I've had the vague impression that in order to obtain a visa to be a resident in the United States, one had to have some sponsoring organization or family or a job offer or something on the receiving end to provide them with help. Is that not correct?
Well, and again, I'll leave it to the attorney for the very specific details, but for instance, with regard to refugees, we are a sponsoring organization. If they have family here, then we share that responsibility of sponsorship with the family. We have many immigrants who are here with a green card, have legal status, may even have become a citizen. When they become a citizen, they are eligible to bring family members over themselves, and they agree to sponsor their family members, I believe, for up to 5 years. One of the concerns, and so, or they have, some folks come over on visas for employment. We've heard about the big tech companies want to bring employees over. The employer is the sponsor. So generally, folks who are immigrating here, now there's different kinds of visas, but it could be that you're coming over as a fiancé, you're marrying somebody over here. So, but generally, you're right, there is some sort of a tie. Otherwise, folks would have come on a student visa or a visitor's visa, and then maybe if they were graduated or offered a job, they would change their status to fall under a different perspective. Yeah, so that is actually true. One of the scary things that I found at this meeting was we were getting leaked executive orders before they actually came out. So the one with the refugees, we actually saw 5 days earlier, and we're like waiting on pins and needles for these to come out. Well, one that I saw last week had to do with legal immigrants who are considered a public charge, which means that after 5 years, if you're an immigrant here legally, you have your green card, you may be eligible for maybe food stamps if you're earning minimum wage, or you may be able to get into subsidized housing if you're low income. And so that's considered public charge. And so this executive order would either deport folks who are draining, taking public charge, or charge their sponsors, ask their sponsors to reimburse the government for the expense of visa. So I'm not sure that that's going to come out. That was just one of the leaked drafts. But this really is turning into all the rules are changed. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just have a very practical question. You have given us a persuasive argument with a lot of numbers in it. I'd like to share that with my congregation. I imagine other people would like to do the same. What's the best way to have the data that you just spoke of?
That's a great question.
Kathy, if you can write up something, we will get it out to everybody who gives us an
You've
email.
got the distribution, and you can do with it as you please, but we'll put together a summary. And I think what's important to me to hear is, what of that information would most resonated, because I've got lots of data. But we also have some stories, too, some personal stories that we can share as well. So I will put that together. Thank you very much for that.
Hi, I'm a volunteer with A Hope.
Thank you very much, because A Hope is...
and I know I've helped put some houses together of late for people that we discovered are not coming. I wondered if Dorcas has any information on those the refugees that were slated to come to Rhode Island that were then pulled off of planes or held aside. And we expect that some of them will still be coming. Do you know?
We do know that there are 13 coming. There's going to be 4 individuals and 2 families. So it'll be 13 altogether. And they're due to come anywhere starting today. No one came today, but they're traveling today through February 17th, at which time the temporary stay, something will happen with that, I'm not sure. So that's the good news. And hopefully we still have those apartments set up. Thank you very much for your help. Oh, yes, sir.
Yes, I would rather not have people know who I am or where I am, because I can't help people if people know who I am. There's a bill in the Rhode Island State Legislature trying to prohibit people from helping people that are here undocumented. I would urge each and every person that's here get in contact with this state legislator to make sure that this bill dies a sudden death. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. There is some, there's no clear definition in terms of what sanctuary cities are, and I think many of law enforcement do similar without naming names in terms of sanctuary, but I do appreciate you saying that, sir, because we do want to protect people who are here.
Kathy, maybe we can bring Roberto up. I want to keep us going. Thank you so much, Kathy, for your information. We'll get more stuff out to you.